The anime opens with a tense scene of a mother and her son, Satoru, stumbling upon a group of exorcists in action. The exorcists, led by a powerful and skilled man named Saburoda Todo, are in pursuit of a gas-masked demon who has taken Satoru captive. Todo and his team put up a fierce fight, but the demon manages to evade them and escape with Satoru. As the story unfolds, we are introduced to another central character, Rin. We see him practicing his mastery of the blue flame on the school roof, determined to perfect his skills. However, his training is interrupted by the arrival of Shura, a fierce and experienced exorcist. She scolds Rin for his inability to fully control his blue flame, warning him that if he does not improve, he risks hurting those around him. The story continues with a new mission for Rin, as he is invited by Shura to join her and Yukio in helping Todo. Upon arriving at the location, they find it in chaos, with people falling victim to the deadly plague caused by the gas-masked demon. They soon meet Todo, a powerful level 2 exorcist and the director of the organization known as Deep Keep. He explains the situation, detailing how a masked figure broke into the Deep Keep and stole the impure king's left eye. The manner in which the demon accomplished this is still a mystery. Despite their efforts, Todo and his team of exorcists were unable to capture the demon before it fled to the location where they now stand. The situation is dire, as the demon not only took Satoru hostage but also spread the disease to the surrounding area, causing widespread panic. Todo urges them to act quickly, as the medical personnel are struggling to keep up with the influx of victims. He also shares his concern for Satoru's safety, as he was in close proximity to the source of the outbreak and may be in critical condition. After Todo finished his explanation, Rin couldn't help but wonder about the mysterious impure king's left eye. He asked about it, but no one seemed to pay him any mind. Todo then revealed that the Exorcist branch office in Kyoto, where the impure king's right eye was being kept, had also been attacked. Though they had managed to survive and protect the right eye, Rin was still troubled and pressed for answers about the left eye. But before he could get any answers, Satoru's mother burst into the room, desperate for the exorcists to save her son. Rin, filled with determination, promised her that he would do everything in his power to rescue Satoru. However, Yukio quickly restrained him, warning that as exorcists, they could not guarantee safety and urging Satoru's mother to prepare for the worst. Rin was furious with Yukio's caution, but the older exorcist sternly reminded him that even exorcists could make mistakes and offering false hope would only cause more pain. With that, Yukio donned a protective suit and set off with Todo in search of the masked demon, with Shura tasked with keeping an eye on Rin. As they made their way through the abandoned building where the demon was believed to be hiding, Todo couldn't help but comment on the impressive reputation that Yukio had built for himself from a young age. But their conversation was interrupted when they suddenly heard footsteps behind them and turned to see Rin following close behind. Yukio was taken aback, but Rin simply reminded him of his promise to Satoru's mother. Reluctantly, Yukio allowed Rin to join them in their pursuit. As they reached the end of a dimly lit hallway, the masked demon materialized in front of them, with Satoru lying unconscious at his feet. Without hesitation, Yukio opened fire, causing the demon to disappear in a puff of smoke. He immediately rushed over to Satoru, where he picked up the impure king's left eye, which the demon had dropped. But to his surprise, the eye was a fake, and as he realized this, Todo sneakily hit him from behind. Yukio was shocked to discover that Todo, who had been leading them on the hunt for the demon, was actually the mastermind behind the whole incident. As Todo removed his protective suit, his true nature as a half-demon was revealed. Yukio tried to attack Todo, but he quickly dodged the attack and managed to knock Yukio down. With a sly grin, Todo explained that he saw a glimpse of his own youth in Yukio and believed that Yukio would eventually understand his motivations. With those words, Todo vanished into thin air. Yukio quickly got back on his feet and rushed over to Satoru, who was gravely injured from the demon's plague, his body infected with mold. Pulling out his medical kit, Yukio immediately administered the cure, saving Satoru's life. After ensuring Satoru's safety, Rin and Yukio left the building and escorted him back to his grateful mother. Moments later, Shura returned, accompanied by Mephisto, and announced that they had just completed an investigation into Todo's actions. Mephisto added that the impure king's left eye had been stolen a long time ago, and Todo's use of it as a decoy was still a mystery. Shura then informed Rin that they were leaving for Kyoto as part of the monks' relief team. As Rin boarded the train, he was greeted by his classmates, who still viewed him with suspicion, with the exception of Kamiki, who chose to sit next to him, not wanting to question Rin's status as a descendant of Satan. Shura explained that the situation at the Kyoto's Deep Keep was critical, as it had been recently attacked by enemies seeking to steal the impure king's right eye. Although the attempt had been foiled, it was clear that the enemy would likely launch another attack soon. Rin and his classmates had been sent as a relief team to help protect the valuable artifact. Shura went on to explain the history behind the impure king's left and right eyes. During the Edo period, a powerful demon known as the impure king had unleashed a deadly plague on the land. A monk from Kyoto was able to defeat the demon, and as proof of his victory, he took the impure king's left and right eyes, keeping them in separate locations as a means of containing the remaining plague. But as they knew, even just one of the eye could release a deadly plague, and the reason or plan behind the stealing of the left eye is still unknown. As Rin and the others arrived in Kyoto, which was the hometown of Ruji, Renzo, and Konekomaru, they boarded a bus and met a monk named Kin, who was Renzo's elder brother. Kin was responsible for guiding them and providing instructions for what they should do next in their relief mission. Not long after their arrival, they reached an inn owned by Ruji's family. They were warmly greeted by Ruji's mother, who seemed kind and friendly, but when she saw her son's dyed hair, her expression turned to one of disapproval. Inside the inn, they saw many people who were injured and being treated as a result of the recent attack on the Deep Keep. Ruji and the others were asked to assist with their care, while Rin was tasked with cleaning up the trash. As Rin worked alone, he was called over by a monk who asked for his help. The monk was washing 2 watermelons and asked Rin to help him clean them before cutting them up and distributing them to the wounded exorcists. Rin accepted the task, but as he began cutting the watermelons, he noticed a distinct smell of alcohol coming from the monk. The monk, embarrassed to be caught drunk, looked away in shame. As Rin watched him, he suddenly remembered his late adoptive father, Fujimoto. Rin couldn't believe it when the monk he had been chatting with revealed himself to be none other than Tatsuma Suguro, the head monk at Kyoto Temple and father of his friend, Ruji. Despite Tatsuma's vastly different appearance from what Rin had imagined, he couldn't help but feel a sense of familiarity. Rin shared with Tatsuma that he had been having issues with Ruji, and was surprised to learn that Tatsuma had been going through similar struggles with his son. Rin expressed his belief that, despite his unpredictable attitude, Ruji was a good person and he wanted to be friends with him. As Rin sat in contemplation, Shura was being escorted by Kenzo to explore the depths of the Kyoto temple. They journeyed through dark and winding passages, finally stopping in front of a chamber where the impure king's right eye was kept. Meanwhile, Rin had just finished cutting a watermelon when Tatsuma climbed over the fence and prepared to leave. As Rin strolled through the temple halls, he stumbled upon a heated argument between 2 monks, Mamushi and Juzo. Their accusations flew back and forth as they blamed each other for an assault incident. Rin, curious, entered the room and watched as the 2 monks' anger boiled over, nearly coming to blows. Just as the tension reached its peak, Ruji burst into the room, swiftly diffusing the situation and preventing the fight from escalating. As the sun began to set, Rin and Ruji were tasked with delivering food to the exorcists. Rin's excitement was palpable as he loaded up on food and set off with Ruji by his side. Upon arriving, they were greeted by Shura, who was relaxing after a long day of training. She kindly offered them a chance to rest and enjoy the food and canned drinks she had provided. As Rin made his way home, he couldn't shake the feeling of disappointment from being ignored by his classmates. In his frustration, he forced his classmate Renzo to eat with him. At first, Renzo kept his distance from Rin, still wary of his powers as the descendant of Satan. Little did they know, the canned drink Rin had brought had been switched with Shura's potent liquor. Rin quickly became inebriated, slurring his words and acting recklessly. But surprisingly, Renzo also began to loosen up and let down his guard, eventually joining Rin in his drunken reverie. Meanwhile, Ruji too was feeling the effects of the alcohol, memories of his past flooding back to him. He remembered the turmoil that had gripped Kyoto Temple after the Blue Night incident. Tatsuma, the head monk, had imposed new ideals, causing many monks to resign as they no longer shared the same vision and mission. Eventually, Tatsuma decided to join the Exorcist order. But while the other monks were working hard, Tatsuma spent his days relaxing, drinking and enjoying himself, a behavior that had deeply troubled Ruji and fueled his anger towards his father. One day, Ruji came face to face with Tatsuma and announced his plans to attend True Cross Academy, a prestigious institution for exorcists. Tatsuma, however, was vehemently opposed to the idea, worrying that Ruji would be dragged into the dangerous world of exorcism. But Ruji was determined and went against his father's wishes, leaving Tatsuma behind. At the same time, Renzo was tasked with carrying a hungover Rin back home, his mind filled with fond memories of his childhood spent with Fujimoto. While this was happening, Yukio and other members of the Exorcist Order were on a mission, when they stumbled upon a car abandoned on a road in the mountains. As they approached, they discovered a dangerous disease emanating from the vehicle. However, their target, Toto, was nowhere to be found, but they found several exorcist corpses instead. It seemed Toto was on top of one of the buildings and on a phone call, telling his interlocutor that without the impure king's right eye, all their efforts would be for naught. To their shock, they discovered Toto had replaced his left eye with the impure king's left eye. The following night, Rin continued to struggle with mastering his blue flame. Despite his best efforts, he found himself unable to burn the wick of a candle without burning the entire candle. His frustration was interrupted by Shura's visit, who offered words of encouragement and guidance. Rin listened attentively and, with renewed focus, he managed to light the candle perfectly using his blue flame. Shura praised Rin's progress, but also reminded him that his training was far from over and even this small accomplishment was only the beginning. She also warned Rin that if he used his blue flame recklessly or lost control, the exorcists would be forced to execute him. Just as Rin and Shura were reflecting on the day's events, they were startled by a sudden and violent vibration shaking the temple. The entire complex was being rocked by the same force, causing the monks to rush to the source of the disturbance in the depths of the keep. To their surprise, they found Toto had taken the impure king's right eye, with the help of Mamushi. Juzo frantically asked Mamushi to come to her senses, but Toto revealed that he did not have control over her and that the monks had been deceived. Tatsuma arrived, ready to attack Toto, but he managed to escape with Mamushi. Tatsuma was set on chasing after Toto, but his plans were thwarted by the arrival of Ruji, who held him back, demanding answers. Ruji was furious. He couldn't understand why his father would keep secrets from him. Tatsuma, however, was unable to provide any explanations and insisted on leaving to follow Toto immediately. Ruji swore and criticized his father, but Tatsuma could not tell him anything. Rin couldn't help but see a reflection of himself in Ruji's attitude, remembering how he had also sworn at Fujimoto before losing him. In an effort to prevent Ruji and Tatsuma from experiencing the same pain he had felt, Rin stopped Tatsuma and urged Ruji to apologize for his behavior. Ruji, still angry, refused to listen. In a moment of anger and frustration, Rin's blue flames went out of control and he attacked Ruji physically and verbally, reminding him that he needed to apologize before it was too late. The situation quickly spirals out of control as Rin's blue flames continue to flare and he continues to attack. Juzo, remembering Mamushi's words about Mephisto raising Satan's son, he realized Rin was the actual son of Satan. Everyone in the room was stunned and unsure of what to do. Finally, Shura intervened, putting Rin unconscious and trying to calm everyone down, though she couldn't stop the monks from putting Rin in prison. As the drama unfolds at the temple, Toto and Mamushi reach a secret chamber within the temple. Mamushi is shocked to learn of the chamber's existence. Toto reveals the truth that the monks had been hiding all along. The monk who defeated the impure king had actually enlisted the help of another demon named Karura, but they were still unable to defeat the impure king. So, the monk instead pulled out 2 of the impure king's eyes and sealed them away. From that day on, Karura left with the Kurikara sword, taking it as a secret that was never to be revealed by the temple. As Toto opened the door to the secret chamber, he explained that inside the room lies the body of the impure king, and should its right and left eyes be returned, the impure king would rise again. At that moment Tatsuma appeared, stopping Toto from taking the impure king's right eye from Mamushi's body. Tatsuma summoned Karura, the phoenix-shaped fire demon, and commanded him to attack Toto. Despite Tatsuma's efforts, Toto managed to grab the right eye and insert it into the impure king's body, causing it to immediately reanimate and begin growing to a massive size. Tatsuma quickly rescued Mamushi and met with Juzo outside, but he didn't have time to explain the situation as the impure king's body continued to grow, destroying the temple building. Tatsuma instructed Juzo to take Mamushi to a safe place, and explained that her fainting was a side effect from carrying the impure king's eye for an extended period. Juzo quickly complied, as Tatsuma prepared to battle the impure king outside the temple. Karura warned him that his oath to the monk's descendant was fulfilled, but Tatsuma stated that his oath with Karura was still in effect, and with his help, he launched an attack that formed a star pattern around the impure king's body. Unfortunately, Tatsuma's attack was not powerful enough to defeat the impure king. As he readied for his next attack, a wave of destructive fire, Toto appeared out of nowhere, and stabbed him from behind. Toto revealed that Tatsuma was his real target all along. He also stabbed and devoured Karura, absorbing his power and making himself younger in the process. Meanwhile, Yukio visited Shura and Rin at the Deep Keep. He showed them the last part of the letter Tatsuma had left for Shura, in which he asked Rin to defeat the impure king with the Kurikara sword. Yukio expressed doubts about Rin's ability to defeat the impure king with his blue flame, especially given the consequences of the Vatican finding out about his powers. Shura agreed and suggested that Rin use his blue flame again to prevent their destruction by the impure king's plague. Rin, determined to succeed, accepted the Kurikara sword from Shura. but much to everyone's surprise, he was unable to unsheath the sword despite his best efforts. Upon seeing the Kurakara sword, Shura immediately knew what had happened to Rin. He had lost his confidence because he was afraid of going berserk again, and was unable to draw the sword. To her surprise, Mephisto appeared and informed her that Rin was to be executed. Without hesitation, Mephisto locked Rin in an impenetrable prison, telling Shura that he could have taken him straight to the Vatican but that he was too lazy to do so. He even returned the Kurakara sword to Shura and gave her some camouflage clothes. Mephisto didn't care if they planned to use all the items he gave them, and then leave. On the other hand, Juzo had returned to the temple while carrying the injured Mamushi. Despite her pain, Mamushi began to explain that she and Toto had awakened the impure king and that Tatsuma was currently fighting alone against it. Upon hearing this, the monks immediately directed their troops to the impure king's location and agreed to put aside the issue of Mamushi's betrayal for the time being. Meanwhile, Shura met with Ruji and his friends, and explained the dire situation regarding Rin's impending execution by the Vatican. She handed over the Kurakara sword and a letter from Tatsuma for Rin to Ruji, explaining that Tatsuma had asked Rin to fight the impure king and was willing to help him. However, due to Rin's confinement in a prison made by Mephisto, the decision of how to proceed was left to Ruji and the others. Shura reminded them that if they intended to free Rin, they would be facing the full might of the Vatican. With this in mind, she gave them camouflage clothes to aid in their escape, and then left them to ponder their decision. After some deliberation, the group decided that they would risk becoming enemies of the Vatican in order to save their classmate. Donning the camouflage clothes, they set off for the Deep Keep, where Rin was being held. After successfully navigating past the guards, they stood before the prison that held their friend. To their surprise, the prison was able to speak, warning them that if anyone entered, they would not be able to escape. Despite the warning, Shiemi stepped forward and, to the group's amazement, was able to open the door. Inside, they found Rin, who was looking dejected and questioning his abilities. But with Shiemi by his side, he found the strength to stand up again. Even so, Rin refused to be saved, convinced that he was a monster. He unleashed his blue flame, trying to push Shiemi away, but she refused to be deterred and instead embraced him, trying to reassure him. After Rin calmed down, Shiemi led him out of the prison. Rin was touched by the fact that his classmates had come to save him, and as he looked at the broken door, he realized that he wasn't alone. Ruji handed the Kurakara sword to him, and said that Rin's words about his father were true, and that he and the others would take Rin to the battleground. He didn't care what Rin would do because he would also take action himself. Rin said that even though he was Satan's son, he would use his blue flame to fight the impure king and not lose control. He asked Ruji to trust him, but Ruji replied that it didn't matter if he was Satan's son or not. He had been angry with Rin because Rin kept everything to himself and didn't trust his friends with his problems. Despite all of this, they all left together, on their way to face the impure king. Meanwhile, Shura and the monks were already engaged in the battle against the impure king and its growing body. As they fought, the monks began to perform powerful rituals in order to summon the fire demon Uchuzma. Shura asked what the monks were planning to do, and learned that the impure king's weakness was fire. Understanding the gravity of the situation, she joined in the ritual, helping the monks to cast the spell. After what seemed like an eternity, Uchuzma finally rose and asked the monks what it was they wanted of her. Unfortunately, she could only lend her power to pure descendants of the founders of Kyoto Temple, and there were only 5 monks who qualified. Though Uchuzma acknowledged that this number was not enough, she could not allow the impure king to rise. So, with little other choice, she lent her power to those 5 monks, including Kin. With Uchuzma's power behind them, the Exorcist summoned the salamander demon to spit fire at the impure king, while the monks prepared to launch fire bullets. Explosion after explosion began to occur as they worked to restrain the impure king's growth, but it was a fierce and desperate fight. Meanwhile, Ruji and the others arrived at the scene of the battle and found Tatsuma lying helpless on the ground. Though still alive, Tatsuma had suffered severe injuries and lost all his power. Just as they arrived, Karura also made his reappearance, though his form had become smaller. Being a phoenix, Karura was able to be reborn, even after death. Tatsuma explained to Rin and the others that the impure king was a mushroom demon whose body would continue to grow, and that its spores would expand to giant size. If the impure king's spores exploded, they would release a deadly plague that could potentially kill many people. He informed them that the key to stopping the impure king was to split its heart, which was located within its spores. Tatsuma told them that 15 years ago, he had made a contract with Karura to create a fire-destroying technique that could destroy the impure king. He then entrusts the group to carry out his plan to destroy the impure king and save the people from the deadly spore clouds. He urged them to trust each other and work together to take down the beast. With a renewed determination, Ruji and the others set out to put an end to the impure king's reign of terror. Unfortunately, Tatsuma's flame was quickly dwindling, as he had used a significant amount of it in his previous attack on the Impure King. He explained that all he could do now was use the Fire Destroyer Wave technique to contain the spread of the plague when the spores split, and asked Rin to cut out the heart of the Impure King's spores. But Rin said that he couldn't, not because he didn't want to, but because he was unable to draw his sword. Tatsuma understood this, but stressed the importance of preventing the plague from spreading. However, Karura pointed out that with Tatsuma's current condition, he was unable to accomplish this. Upon learning that Ryuji was Tatsuma's son, Karura suggested that his contract could be transferred to Ryuji's body, but Tatsuma refused, wanting to end all conflicts that had occurred during his generation. With this, Ryuji finally realized that his father's actions had been driven by a desire to protect him from becoming entangled in his generation's problems. In response, Ryuji convinced Tatsuma that he was ready to bear the burden and put an end to it all. Eventually, Tatsuma relented and Karura transferred the Fire Destroyer Wave technique contract to Ryuji's body. After the contract transfer was completed, Tatsuma quickly taught Ryuji how to create a barrier. Ryuji then asked Renzo and Konekomaru to go inform Shura of the recent developments. Rin, too, promised to stay by Ryuji's side and assist him in any way he could, even though he couldn't draw his sword. They split up, with Shiemi and Kamiki left to protect the injured Tatsuma. Not long after, Rin and Ryuji arrived at the vicinity of the Impure King's castle-shaped body. Suddenly, Kuro appeared, advising them to leave the area immediately, as there were terrible monsters lurking there. Rin knew that the monster Kuro was referring to was the Impure King, and he made it clear that he would not back down. Seeing this, Kuro reluctantly transformed into a giant cat, and agreed to accompany Rin and Ryuji on their quest. On the other hand, Yukio continued to battle the Impure King's growing body, when he encountered Todo in the vicinity. Pointing his gun at Todo, Yukio was taken aback by the sight of Todo's younger form. The two of them fought fiercely, with Todo initially appearing to have the upper hand. In the midst of their battle, Todo tried to provoke Yukio by claiming that he knew that Yukio had always been consumed by his feelings for Rin. Todo seemed convinced by his own words, but was surprised when Yukio deliberately missed his shot, instead using the opportunity to create a magic circle. Moments later, Yukio also awakened the Water Guardian spirits who immediately surrounded Todo. He confessed his feelings of both love and hate for Rin, but expressed his self-loathing for his own weakness. With that, Yukio immediately made the Water Guardian spirits entangle Todo with his water bubbles, effectively extinguishing the fire on Todo's body. Meanwhile, Rin and Ryuji rode on Kuro as they continued to track the Impure King's form. However, every time Kuro stepped onto the Impure King's body, mushroom bubbles would shoot up and attack them, making it difficult for them to find a suitable location to activate the barrier. Ryuji also expressed his doubt that even if they did find the right spot, he wouldn't have enough time to cast the spell. He admitted that he had only heard the spell once and didn't have it fully memorized. Even if he did manage to create a barrier, he still didn't know how to defeat the enormous body of the Impure King. But Kuro then took them darting towards the spore area. It was huge like a ball, which gave them a glimmer of hope. Luckily, they came across a large rock that they were able to step on, and they decided to stop there. Rin instructed Ryuji to immediately cast the spell, while he and Kuro would attack the Impure King's body parts that tried to get close to them. With little time to spare, Ryuji began to recite the spell, and his body released a fiery light that shot into the sky. In an instant, a giant dome of fire appeared and engulfed the entire body of the Impure King. Everyone was awestruck by the sight of the fire barrier, with Rin praising Ryuji for his coolness. On the other hand, Yukio looked exhausted after summoning the Water Guardian spirits. Todo managed to break free from the water bubbles that had trapped him, but he was impressed by Yukio's abilities, despite not being a top-class exorcist. Todo approached Yukio and strangled him, having grown tired of playing around and planning to launch a fire attack on him. At the same time, although Ryuji and Rin had successfully stopped the spread of the Impure King's body, they found themselves trapped inside the dome. Rin continued to fend off the various parts of the Impure King that attempted to get close, and was frustrated by his inability to draw his sword. However, an unexpected problem arose within the protective fire dome, as the Impure King suddenly released a plume of white smoke that began to fill the entire dome. Outside the dome, Yukio managed to break free from Todo's grip, but at the same time, he was surprised to find that his eye was burning with blue flame, and his vision became normal for a brief moment. Not long after, Juzo and the other monks came to rescue him. Filled with anger, Juzo began to relentlessly beat Todo, attacking him with his fire techniques. But Juzo's attacks had little effect, as Todo was able to use fire magic and could continuously regenerate thanks to Karura's power. In addition, all the fire Juzo launched was absorbed by Todo, making him stronger. Several other monks also attempted to attack Todo, but their efforts proved to be ineffective. Seeing this, Yukio came up with an idea and immediately began to plan a way to defeat Toto. Yukio then instructed the monks to continue attacking Toto with fire magic from all directions. Toto arrogantly declared that all their attacks were only making him stronger. After a while, the monks suddenly jumped away from Toto, leaving him confused. At the same time, Juzo appeared above Toto, creating a huge fireball and attacking him directly. A huge explosion occurred, and Toto was engulfed in the giant flames. Yukio explained that when Toto reached his limit, he would be like a phoenix, turning to ashes before regenerating again. When the flames began to die down, Toto was still able to survive and was preparing to attack again, but his hands suddenly broke. He also realized that it had started raining, and his body began to turn to ash and dissolve in the rainwater. Despite this, Yukio warned that this would only hold Toto off for a while and he would inevitably return once he had dried out. On the other hand, Konekomaru and Renzo managed to reach Shura and informed her that Ruji had created a protective fire dome and that he and Rin were still inside it, defending the dome. Upon hearing this, Shura quickly rushed towards the protective dome to assist Rin and Ruji. Meanwhile, Toto's mud form suddenly rose and attacked Yukio and the others with fierce determination. Inside the dome, the true impure king finally revealed himself. The giant demon approached Rin, who was struggling to fend it off. Ruji attempted to aid Rin by using his fire, but it drained his power quickly. Karura warned that he could only maintain the dome for about 15 minutes. Wanting to prevent this situation from escalating, Ruji urged Rin to leave the dome and evacuate as many people as possible, but Rin refused and instead proposed working together to defeat the impure king. Despite the apparent danger, Ruji ultimately decided to trust in Rin's plan. As the impure king closed in on them once more, Rin and the others were caught off guard and unable to defend themselves. Kuro was engulfed by the mushroom bubbles, and Ruji was also attacked and on the verge of losing control of his protective spell. In that crucial moment, Rin finally managed to draw his sword and lunged at all the mushroom bubbles holding Kuro and Ruji. With newfound determination, Rin prepared to launch a counterattack against the imposing figure of the impure king that loomed before him. As Yukio battled the shape-shifting Toto, he found himself struggling to keep up. Despite his best efforts, Toto seemed to regenerate faster than he could melt him down, always returning to torment him with taunts and physical assaults. Yukio couldn't help but feel a sense of hopelessness as Toto strangled him, relishing in his pain. But just when it seemed all was lost, Juzo entered the fray, providing the opportunity for Yukio to break free and turn the tables on his attacker. Breathing heavily, Yukio stood victorious over the melting Toto. He couldn't help but wonder about the creature's true identity and purpose. But as Toto lay there, melting away into nothing, he refused to answer any of Yukio's questions. Seizing the opportunity, Yukio made a run for it with the help of the monks. As Rin fought against the monstrous body of the impure king, he found himself pushed to his limits. But just as all hope seemed lost, Uchuzma emerged in full force, revealing to Rin that she was the eternal enemy of the impure king and offering to teach him the use of the Samada fire flow. Without hesitation, Rin agreed and Uchuzma merged with his sword, causing his blue flame to flare up even more fiercely. With renewed determination, Rin lunged at the impure king, ready to strike the final blow. But Uchuzma warned him that his attack could destroy the entire area, causing Rin to hesitate. He couldn't bring himself to harm his fellow exorcists in the process. Unfortunately, Rin had already jumped and was now in the heat of the moment. To everyone's surprise, Rin began to burn as he was engulfed by his own blue flame. A massive explosion of fire erupted, and Rin's blue flame overflowed everywhere, burning everything in its path. But to the relief of all, the flames seemed not to burn but warm the exorcists instead. The plague that had affected them during the fight against the impure king was also wiped out by Rin's blue flame. Rin, through his determination and inner strength, was able to control the flames and bring the battle to a close. Meanwhile, high above the battlefield, Mephisto watched the scene unfold with great enthusiasm. He declared that he had just witnessed the emergence of the Blue Exorcist, a being destined to one day slaughter all demons. With the defeat of the impure king, Rin emerged victorious, having destroyed the monstrous being and healed all those who were affected by it. But as Uchuzma approached him, she posed a question that Rin had been grappling with himself: was he human or demon? Rin hesitated to answer, and Uchuzma warned him that one day he would have to choose. With that, she disappeared. As the dust settled and the exorcists assessed the damage, their opinions of Rin began to shift. Yukio, Rin's twin brother, arrived on the scene, scolding him for recklessly using his demon powers. In his anger, Yukio struck Rin, but Rin accepted the blow without retaliation. He declared that he no longer saw himself as Satan's son and revealed his newfound ability to control the blue flame. But with his strength exhausted, Rin collapsed unconscious. In his unconscious state, Rin had a vision of Fujimoto, his mentor, walking away from him. Desperate for guidance, Rin called out to Fujimoto, asking him what he should do, but Fujimoto only replied with a sarcastic, "You're so stupid," before leaving Rin to make his own decision. Rin's victory over the impure king and his control over his own power marked a turning point for him. He began to question his own identity and the path that lies ahead of him. Days passed, and Rin slowly regained consciousness, to find Kuro and Shiemi by his side, who were keeping watch over him as he recovered. Shiemi awoke as well, and explained that she had intended to take care of him but ended up falling asleep. Rin was touched by her presence, and thanked her for her care. In turn, Shiemi thanked Rin for saving everyone and for how he had helped change her during the journey. Meanwhile, Mephisto was in a meeting with Yaozo, one of the temple's top monks, who had played a key role in the exorcism against the impure king. Mephisto praised Yaozo and his fellow monks for their successful handling of the situation, and even suggested that elite exorcists from the Vatican may not have been able to defeat the impure king. Yaozo humbly admitted that they had done little and were just trying to hold the impure king back until Vatican's help could arrive. Fortunately, Rin had emerged as the hero of the day. Mephisto then proposed that Yaozo testify at the Vatican on Rin's behalf, to help lift the execution order hanging over Rin's head, and promised to do everything in his power to support Rin. As Mephisto was leaving the meeting, Shura, another of the exorcists, approached him with suspicion, and pointed her sword at him. She suspected Mephisto of being the mastermind behind the incident, and asked him what his true intentions were for Rin. Mephisto, who always had his own agenda, smiled and left without answering her question, leaving her with more questions than answers. Mephisto refused to answer Shura's questions, instead warning her that he had the power to kill her at any moment if he so chose. Shura was left feeling uneasy about his cunning and elusive nature, but she knew that Mephisto would do everything in his power to save Rin from execution, as he had bigger plans for him, although she couldn't quite figure out what they were. As the days passed, the exorcists of Kyoto Temple were surprised by Juzo's sudden proposal of marriage to Mamushi, one of the exorcists there. Even Mamushi was surprised, but her father had already approved of Juzo, and so everyone else also agreed, with the exception of Mamushi herself, who was shy to admit her feelings for him. Despite her initial hesitation, she eventually agreed to the marriage, with the support of everyone around her. With a little free time before returning to Tokyo, Rin and his classmates decided to make the most of their time in Kyoto by visiting some of the city's famous sightseeing spots. They spent the day exploring the sights, enjoying each other's company and trying to forget the fierce battle they had just gone through. Rin's friends were trying to make Rin forget about what had happened and help him to take his mind off the recent events. As the anime draws to a close, we see Rin standing by the river, deep in conversation with his twin brother Yukio. Rin tells Yukio of his resolve to become an exorcist like him, and to fight against demons using his own demon powers. Although Yukio is still hesitant about Rin's decision to openly embrace his powers, Rin assures him that their differing opinions would not drive them apart. He invites Yukio to join their friends and to leave Kyoto together. Throughout the series, viewers are reminded that it's important to always believe in our own powers, never to give up, and to have the courage to make unexpected decisions. This anime encourages viewers to not let fear or doubts get in the way of our goals, and to be true to oneself. Through Rin's journey, we learn that with determination and the support of loved ones, we can overcome any obstacle and achieve our dreams.